I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. A lot of crazy stuff is going on. Record highs or near record high in the Dow, record high in the NASDAQ, and then a big drop off. You've got multi-billionaire investor / money manager Paul Singer talking about how all hell's going to break loose. That was a week or so ago. And then just this week on Bloomberg says he's very worried, very concerned. I think it was a direct quote, and talking about how all the leverage and debt in the market and comparing it to 2008 and worse than 2008. What's going on with record highs and record debt? No better person to bring on than Gregory Mannarino, the mind of a trader, and a good one at that, at traderschoice.net. Gregory Mannarino, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. Great to be back, Greg. Thank you. Thanks again. Well, what a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs day with the NASDAQ. And, I call you up in the pre-interview and say, did you see what's going on? It looks like we're having the bust in the tech market right now. So we waited for the markets to close last week, and now we have you on. And what's going on with the record high in the Dow and a big, fat, funky sell-off in the NASDAQ?
Very interesting set of dynamics here in play, Greg. And I'll tell you what concerns me. Let's back up just a little bit to the action that happened on Friday. So I had outlined for everyone on my own blog how the dynamics, a whole set of dynamics were in place to push the stock market higher. And this has played out to be exactly right. Now, Friday, right out of the hole, the stock market ripped higher. And as you had said, the NASDAQ did touch an all-time record high. Then, literally from out of nowhere and for no apparent reason, and this is the concern I want to talk about, we had a hardcore sell-off in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ did finish 2% lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average did put on a nice gain, and we could talk about why that happened as well. But let's focus on tech here and why I am so concerned right now. All of the parameters that you want to look at right now were pointing towards, and are still at this point, believe it or not, a higher market. Now, despite that, we saw this sell-off, which came out of nowhere. Here's our key. In the NASDAQ, this is something that we have all seen over and over again, and that's why it's serious. When you get like a sell-off because of a geopolitical event or something like that, something that's driving the market, then you can say more than likely, it's nothing, it's going to bounce back. But this came out of nowhere when no one expected it, when everything is pointing towards higher. Okay, there's the concern, because we saw the same thing at the top of the last bubble, and the top of the last bubble before that, and the top of the last bubble before that. It's always the same story. People forget these things, but for someone like myself, I need to be aware of it. Now, what we saw with regard to the entire tech sector is alarming beyond any shadow of any doubt. Now, another thing, tech has been the driver behind a lot of what is going on here in the market, pushing it higher and higher. The reason why the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished with a really nice gain on Friday, I think almost a 90-point gain, was because of the financial stocks. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, they're waiting in the Dow. The financial stocks are rallying here because of changes to Dodd-Frank that are going to happen. And the supposed rate hike, I think the Fed is going to raise rates, honestly, this time, a fractional amount. So this is benefiting financials. But here's the main takeaway from what we saw on Friday. With the tech sector getting hit like that from out of nowhere, there's the key. This came out of left field. And the potential that this has to start affecting other sectors can potentially start a cascade of events. Look, what do we know? You had alluded to a couple of pretty lofty people, fund managers, and there's a whole bunch of them out there marching out. It seems like every week talking about valuation in this market, how it's not real. Sounds like Greg Hunter and Greg Mannarino, doesn't it? There's no doubt that we are in financial fantasy land. It's epic. So have we just witnessed the bursting of this bubble? It is very possible. And the reason why is because it came out of nowhere. It wasn't driven by a geopolitical event. It wasn't driven by a downgrade. It wasn't driven by anything. It just happened. We need to watch this moving forward. And again, keep this in mind, everyone. We're not going to see, if this in fact is a bursting of the tech bubble, which we are clear, everything is in a bubble. There is not one asset, Greg. You know this better than anybody else. Not one that has
gold. Gold's at the bubble.
Well, no, I'm not talking about a bubble. Okay, I'm talking about that has a real price discovery mechanism behind it. Gold is in a bubble. It's in an inverse bubble. Okay, so we have inverse bubbles with regard to the precious metals. We have bubbles to the upside, which with regard to the risk on, which is equities. There's no doubt about it. So these are going to correct. We've talked about this many times. Inverse bubbles will correct. Bubbles to the upside will correct at one point. It's going to feel like the mother of all meltdowns, but all it's going to be is the market trying to establish a fair value here. That's all this is. Nothing is real. How many times have we spoken about this? It's unbelievable, and there's going to be a moment of reckoning. How we need to, if this is real, if this is an actual bursting of this bubble here,
the tech bubble,
which will bleed off to everything else, I would expect a few things to happen. We might get a follow-through come on Monday, or we'll see a bounce, which will lead to a subsequent follow-through. I'm planning on capitalizing on it, whichever way it goes. I don't care. You know that. I'll capitalize on the bounce. I'll short it after that. Don't matter to me. I don't care if the market goes upside down or backwards. I just don't care. But I'm telling people what they need to watch out for. It's very, very important. And the fact, once again, that this came out of nowhere, that was driven by nothing, is a big tell.
And so you got to wait till Monday, till it opens Monday. If we start getting, of course, then we have the pledge protection team that won't allow a market to correct. I mean, that's the hardest thing about this. If you're just dealing with normal records, with normal references and normal markets, you'd say, wow, a 2% decline on Friday. Whoo, Monday's going to be a rough day. But it may be up 1,000 points. I don't know, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the issue with regard to that. We know the markets are fake. We know they're manipulated, but that's our strength. That's what I tell my lions out here. I'm referring to those of my pride that do trade this markets, that are stackers. They're all part of my pride here. You're part of my pride too, Greg Hunter, and I'm part of yours. But yeah, we need to watch this. A bounce on Monday wouldn't surprise me. We need to see where this goes moving forward. This has the potential to be big. We all know it's coming. Whether or not the plunge protection team is going to start buying everything, good. Let them do that. All it's going to do is make these distortions worse, but there's going to be a point where they're going to let it go. Now, why I think this is actually kind of interesting as well, look what happened this week. We got Congress, Comey before Congress. We had intelligence committees before the Intelligence Committee. I mean, talk, and there's nothing there. So they're going to look for a way maybe to hurt this president. I wouldn't be surprised about that. Let the market go here a little bit, maybe rattle some people. It seems like the deep state is really controlling everything at this point. But I would not be surprised if they decide to hurt him another way, because they can't get him. They can't get him. Comey admitted Comey is now an admitted leaker,
which I think is stunning. I think that was the big headline. You're the guy that leaked. I mean, you were prosecuting, Chelsea Bradley, whatever the heck his name is, her name is Manning. You're charging Snowden. I mean, what? Now you're one of the leakers? Stunning.
Well, what's even more stunning to me is there's a couple of things. Let's talk about that real quick. He admits that the Obama administration, Loretta Lynch, told him to back off with regard to the Hillary investigation. Let me just say this too while people are listening. So this guy, Comey, decides to take notes while he's talking to President Trump. Meanwhile, during 3 hours of interrogation of Hillary Clinton, he doesn't write down a word. That should tell you something. I think we all
good point. Didn't put her under oath, didn't record it.
No. So, that's huge. Okay, so 3 hours of testimony, Nothing goes written down here. You know, we see what this man is working for. He's a weasel. He's a weasel. He's a liar, and it's amazing that this man has any credibility whatsoever. You know, he's coming out here. It makes me want to laugh sometimes. Oh, Trump is disparaging me. Does he forget what the left did to him during the Hillary investigation? They wanted his head big time. They scandalized him every way they possibly could. Oh, but that doesn't matter now. But look, I think we get what's going on here with him. But look at this, Greg. So again, we got all of these dynamics in this market, which we're pointing towards higher. We have the market moving higher. We have the Comey thing out of the way. He admitted there's no collusion. There was no collusion between Russia and Trump. He was never under investigation for it. Meanwhile, CNN is still pushing that narrative, even today. It's unbelievable. If anyone is watching that, you got to be brain dead at this particular point, or you need to up your medication. I don't know another way to put that either. But seriously, they might allow this market to bleed off here, or maybe this is it.
And that's what you're thinking. That they may think, okay, we couldn't get him on the Russian thing. That's not going to happen. The obstruction of justice, forget it. That's not going to happen either.
Yeah.
You know, he basically said it in the hearing that it wasn't an order. You know, that, let this guy go. Come on. And so you're saying that they may go ahead and just say, okay, fine. We'll just pull the plug on this market. We wouldn't take that much, really, would it? I mean, they've been buying. The Fed has been buying. We're already, we're approaching $2 trillion in assets. The central banks already this year? I mean, would it take all that much to kick this thing off its, pedestal that's like a pen?
It's a hair trigger. It's a hair trigger. I mean, that's what I'm honestly, this thing is teetering on a knife's edge. There's no doubt about it. Nothing is real. Nothing is real here. Again, and you and I have spoken about this a million times, and this is what makes me laugh once again. When you sit there and listen to the mainstream financial commentators talk about this market as if it's real. If it were real, if the Federal Reserve would not be taking the largest part of this market for the better part of a decade now and artificially suppressing interest rates, creating bubbles like we have never seen. These are the worst distortions that have ever been seen in the history of the financial world. That's a fact. Worse than the dot-com bubble, way worse than the 2008 meltdown as well. So this one has the potential to make those last two look like, walking through Central Park with an ice cream cone. That's really the truth. So what are they going to do here? Are they going to use this against President Trump right now? Say, oh, look, the market rallied, but now they'll twist this every way that they can. So we need to be ready for anything. I mean, I think that's the takeaway here. Friday's market action was an eye-opener. Look, I'm sitting here in front of my computer, and I'm trading these markets, and I'm watching this in real time. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Why? I'm obviously trying to find out what's happening to position myself the right way. And then when you say, hey, this just came out of nowhere, and then you got the mainstream financial channels downplaying it already. Oh, no, this is okay. Maybe it's a fat finger error. Oh, yeah, that affected the entire tech sector. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I mean, they're going to conjure up things because they want you and everybody else in this market right now. And I'm telling you, Greg, that's the setup that they've been doing for the longest time. They want everyone in this market so they can fleece everyone. What they want to do, it's pretty simple, is have control. And that's the way to do it, by wiping out the people, all right? By forcing them to be in a situation where they have to ask for help. Well, that gives the control to the powers that be. We know the president isn't pulling the strings. It's the central banks that are pulling the strings. It's the deep state that's pulling the strings, all part of the same thing. So whether or not they're going to let this go, I don't know. I'm a little cautious right now. I only have one position open right now, and it's a straddle on Qualcomm, so I'm sitting pretty. I don't care what happens on Monday whatsoever. I will allocate my funds appropriately at that time, and I'm going to have a good day, period. Well, and I hate to sit here and sound like that, but that's the truth. This is what they want, Greg. They want control. They want to hurt this president every way that they can. Now that they can't get him on these other things, they're going to try to get him some other way. Who knows where this is going to go? But there's no doubt in my mind. and I am sure yours and probably 90% of your listeners, that there are those on the inside here that are determined to bring down this country. And look, this, let me just say one more thing. If you can hate the president, you can hate him, but you got to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is what it's going to mean for you or your family or your kids if we allow them to take down our country, Greg. That's what they want to do. It's unbelievable. But there are so many people that hate this country. I think they should just get the blank out. If they hate it that much, they want to live in a socialist, communist, fascist kind of regime, we'll go move. There's plenty of them all over the world. There's no reason to bring down our country here. I think we could even, if this thing comes apart here, okay, let me just say this, because this is huge. If they allow this market to come down, if we just saw the opening act here, we have the potential for civil war right here in the United States. That's a fact.
When you first said this, right after the president got elected, President Trump, and I was surprised because, we had this big limit down, and I think at one point the futures were down 800 points. And, then it, mysteriously came back up. I'm sure that's the plunge protection team. But after the dust settled and people started going, tax cuts, less regulations, infrastructure, maybe fix Obamacare. I think Wall Street, a lot of people, as you said, are on the other side of this trade started liking this. Yeah. And you said that it would go up. I says, I'm telling you, this is a game changer. It's going to go way up. Have we just seen, in your mind, this is the first time that you have said, this worries me. Have we seen the tip-off of another game changer with this big 2% after hitting record highs, this big 2% suck down in NASDAQ? Have we hit another game changer inflection point in your mind?
Well, we'll know this next week. There's no doubt about it. We're going to have to watch this. But what gets me about it, this event, it just came out of nowhere. It wasn't driven by anything. And it's always the same. Anyone that studies these markets knows exactly what I'm talking about to be true. And I would urge you to comment here as well. If you remember seeing the same types of events occur in the past, I am sure you have. That's a real tell that we may be staring down something that can be very serious. Now, again, tech has been the driving force here in this market. There's no doubt about it. Now, if we just lost that pillar of support, does that mean that it may bring down the other pillars with it? It very well could. What supported the Dow on Friday was financials. If it wasn't for the financials that were rallying, we would have brought down, this market would have sustained a lot more damage. I'll tell you something else here. Crude oil. We saw a meltdown in crude oil last week. I am convinced that, well, in the light of this may be a little bit of a game changer too. But what they usually do, Greg, and you know this, you've seen this before, is they create some kind of an event or a rumor that pushes crude oil back up and pulls the market with it. So there's almost like a setup here. Let's put this together here. We had a massive sell-off in crude oil. We had an event on Thursday, which was very eye-opening to me. Some entity out there dumped $4 billion of paper gold contracts onto the market with a market order. And then we get this thing on Friday. So we really may be looking at a triple threat here to the market. Again, let's see how this plays out next week. And we'll just, if you're a market participant like me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't care where this market goes either. It doesn't matter to me. But it's going to matter to a lot of people if this thing goes down here that are stuck in 401k plans, things they can't get out of or things they don't know how to protect, because there's a lot of entities out here that want to control you, and they're going to do that by hurting you right in the pocketbook. Believe me, this is the game plan. There's no doubt about it. And they're going to try to hurt this president too.
Do you think that, well, first of all, I want to talk about the gold thing. I'm surprised. I heard that too, 4 billion paper contract. It's just counterfeiting. It's just fraud. Just government-sanctioned fraud. Unbelievable fraud. They don't have $4 billion worth of gold. And but I digress. But gold's still at $12.70. With that kind of a hit, and gold pretty much took a big 1-2 punch in the kisser and said, "Is that all you got?"
Yeah.
Does that tell you that gold is strong or weak? What does that tell you about gold?
it tells me about gold. It means you need to be hoarding it. If they're going to attack it, they're going to do whatever they can. And this should tell you one thing. You need to be hoarding gold. More specifically, silver. I love gold, Greg. You know that. I own gold. I own platinum. I own palladium. I own a lot of silver. Silver is my favorite of them all. I've been telling people, in my opinion, it's the most undervalued asset in the history of the world. You need to be, grabbing as much as you can. Again, these are not trades. These are long-term investments. And I will keep acquiring more myself. I hope that's what people are doing out here. Bet against the debt. Become your own central bank. Because when all of this finally reaches a fair value, which it will do at one point, the true value of these things that have been sources of wealth and holders of wealth for thousands of years will be realized. There's no doubt about it, because we are in financial fantasy land. It's like a Disneyland right now for the markets, and there's going to be a terrible price to pay. It's not just Greg Hunter and Greg Mannarino saying this. There's a lot of guys out there saying this, a lot of heavy hitters who have been trying to warn about this for quite a long time, while the mainstream financial channels, they sit there and with their fake smiles, reading scripts, bringing in flunky after flunky out there to try to convince you and me and everybody else that everything is just fine. Everything is not just fine. World central banks have created a financial Frankenstein, and unfortunately, we're all going to have to answer for that, Greg.
If they can't get Trump, I mean, they've tried everything. Before he was even sworn in, the Electoral College, they tried that. They've got this Russia phony thing. They got that. They want to try to impeach him. The Democrats, the deep state. They obstruction of justice, which is a laugh. Comey turned into the leaker. Robert Mueller, who's going to do an investigation on the total bogus, completely destroyed story. What a waste of time of Robert Mueller's time. I mean, the former FBI director. If they can't get Trump, if they can't take him down, and they have tried one thing after another to try,
they're going to collapse the economy.
Is that okay? That's my question. What are they going to do?
They're going to wipe out the economy. They're going to hurt everybody. They're gonna. Well, housing is in a bubble. It's cracking. There's no doubt about it. I've been covering this at length. The markets are in bubbles that are truly epic. All of this is being supported on the back of a debt bubble. So that's what they're going to do. No doubt about it. If they can't get him in every other way, they're going to collapse the economy. Again, it's the central banks that are in control here, and they don't care. The Wall Street banks as well. Just as I have outlined for everyone that I don't care which way this market goes, neither does Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. You can go on down the line. They don't care either. Their traders are going to do exactly what I am going to do. That is, they are going to short the market. They're going to find opportunities as the market falls, that cash that's leaving is simply going to be transferred to, frankly, people like myself who work for the big banks, that understand what's going on and how to capitalize on this. This is how it's set up. They're going to bet against their own clients, and we're going to see a wave of wealth move from one group of people to another group of people. That's all that's going to happen. This is the setup that's been going on for a very long time. This is why the Federal Reserve has reinflated bubbles. This is why the Federal Reserve bought all of the mortgage-backed securities off of the big banks. Remember when they were toxic assets, Greg? Well, now they're not toxic assets anymore. Now they're worth something, that the Federal Reserve has reinflated a housing bubble. Now they're going to dump their balance sheet. All those people that got kicked out into the streets, that money should be going to them. No, it's going to go to the Federal Reserve. It's going to go to the Wall Street banks who got bailed out. Remember, we supported all this. So whatever happens to us all right now, because none of us, so there were some of us like you and me and probably your listeners, who understood what was going on, but the general public allowed this setup to happen because they didn't open their mouths, and now they're going to pay the price, and they're going to wish they did.
And you think that's if things keep going the way they do, where they are, and I think they will, and I think Trump's going to strike back, and I think Jim Comey ought to have a defense attorney. He ought to hire a defense attorney, and mark my words, that's going to happen. You're going to hear an announcement that Jim Comey has lawyered up. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. And we're going to have a big pushback, a big strike back from Donald Trump. And once the deep state, and a lot of people, you said a lot of people are on the other side of this trade. Once the deep state realizes, and I mean, when I say on the other side of the trade, they're for Donald Trump. They like what he's doing. And once the deep state, the people who are against Donald Trump, once they realize that this isn't going to work, you're saying goodbye economy. They're going to pull the legs up underneath it. That's
a card they can absolutely play, Greg, and one that will affect everybody. So it'll make him look bad. It'll make his economic policies look bad. Although, look at the stock market. It has been rallying off the back of President Trump's election here because they know he's the right guy for the job, plain and simple. But let me just end this, if we can close here with that. I want one senator out there, just one, to ask Comey why he thought it was necessary to write down everything with regard to his meetings with Trump and didn't write down a syllable during his 3-hour interrogation with Hillary Clinton while she was under investigation. That's what I want to know.
Well, one last thing I want to bring up is the Middle East. We got this military ban. I've been harping about this, and I know you look at the look at the financials, you look at the tech, but you also look at the geopolitical. And I mean, you have Rex Tillerson out last week saying, "Hey, enough of this blockade with Qatar. We got an Air Force base there. Enough of this going on with Iran offering ports and help to Qatar and Turkey offering help, and Saudi Arabia, threatening to invade and take military action and actually putting a naval blockade and Saudi Arabian allies a blockade on Qatar. Could that be something that blows up at least the oil market? I mean, this is pretty real to me. I mean, it's pretty real.
Absolutely.
And very underreported. The only people reporting it is Zero Hedge, which, bravo to them. And they got quotes and legitimate stories and whatever. It's a real story. Could this thing with Qatar blow up here in the Persian Gulf or something come out of another thing that, whoop, boom, comes out of nowhere?
Well, it's absolutely, but it's not going to come out of nowhere, and I'll tell you why. I told everybody when we saw that massive sell-off in crude oil on my own blog, I said, watch for something to happen to push crude oil back higher. It's going to happen. Look, the market, especially the financial sector that rallied on Friday is dependent on crude oil being higher. Their investments are off the charts here. If they need to engineer another war or whatever they got to do to push the price of crude oil up, they're going to do that. Now, what a nice setup that would be, wouldn't it? Market collapses here. Dollar starts to evaporate. Crude oil goes to the moon. How is that going to pinch the regular guy and the regular girl out there? Wow. All of these individuals out there are capitalizing on it. I already told everyone what I'm going to do. I am expecting crude oil to make a huge run higher because of some event. And I can promise you I'm going to be buying calls on crude oil upside down, backwards, and sideways. And I'm going to be laughing. Because I told everyone it was going to happen. If you want to capitalize on this, go to my website, traderschoice.net, where I post my stock picks there for free. And you can play the same game that I'm playing. And the same game that the Wall Street banks are playing too. It's not exclusive to them. We can do them. We can beat them at their game. Let me tell you something. I would be willing to bet I'm a way better trader than any of them over there working for Goldman and JP Morgan or Morgan Sachs. I'll eat their lunch for every single one of them. That's the truth.
Well, they have a friend of you on Facebook and follow you on Twitter and whatever. And there's
I have friends of mine, Greg, that work at these banks and they follow your show. So I know for a fact that what I'm saying is true.
Oh yeah. They know what's going on. Listen, with that, we'll leave it. Thank you for your appraisal for the upcoming week and that big tech shakeout takedown, which could be the beginning of something big, bad, ugly, and ominous. Thanks for your comments on Qatar, which I don't think is going away anytime soon. Gregory Mannarino of TradersChoice.net. He says it's free, and he is correct. It is free. You can follow the stuff for free. Be careful trading. Oh, one last thing, just so people understand. People say you trade. And just so you explain to people what you're doing when you get a big windfall, a big trade, you don't just leave it in cash or put it back in the market. What do you do when you get a big windfall when you trade?
My biggest investment, Greg, is precious metals, bar none. Physical silver more than anything else. So that should tell people what I do here. I'm betting against this debt. I'm becoming my own central bank at every chance I can get. And I think that is the greatest trade on earth.
Your profits go into to continue stacking silver, especially silver and gold, platinum, whatever. But you continually take your profits and dollar cost average into the precious metals market. Is that correct?
That's correct. My largest investment, bar none, is in metals.
Gregory Mannarino, there you have it from a professional trader. That's all you do. TradersChoice.net. Gregory Mannarino, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Great to be here. Thanks.